Okay, so today we're going to start a series, it's going to be a 3-part lecture series on what's called meta-ethics. Don't let that big word scare you guys. It's a really simple concept to understand, and we're going to start small and build our way up.
So first we're going to start with discussing what does it mean to have a criterion for something. So, what is it about a movie that makes it good? What's something that you'd like to see?
In a movie?
Yeah.
Dialogue. Good dialogue.
Okay, so some movies have great dialogue. Is that what it means to have a good movie? So if you see a movie and like the dialogue is written super well, but like all the actors in it are like awful and like there's a super low production budget, and like half the time the camera isn't even on the actors or something, like would that movie be like a good movie?
No.
Wow. So there are other things too that contribute to a movie being good. Can someone else give me an example? Yeah.
The plot.
The plot. Yeah, definitely. Another way to
You want a movie to have like a compelling story.
Yeah, awesome.
Storyline.
Cool. Any other ideas?
Cinematography.
Yeah, cinematography. I know that I really like watching movies with lots of explosions and people dying. I'm a huge action movie fan. So for me, a good movie is by like how many big explosions there are and how much blood is spilled. That's just
Patrick likes great.
I do. So all of these things have a common feature. They're all isolating something about the movie that you find enjoyable or that you find entertaining or enlightening or something. And then you can say that this movie that I have just seen is in fact a good movie because it satisfied exactly what I was looking for. In my case, explosions and blood, and in other people's cases, what's your name by the way?
Caitlin.
In Caitlin's case, it's dialogue. But it's all talking about a certain feature of the movie that we find really valuable, and then you can say that that movie is now a good movie to fulfill that.
But it's more than just like dialogue, right? So if there's a movie and it's just like someone talking and they say words and then they say more words and then they say more words. Would you like that movie?
Probably not. I mean, I've liked movies where it was just one scene the whole time.
Yeah. So but there are certain like conditions, some standards that we hold these movies to when we're talking about dialogue. So it's like we want there to be engaging dialogue. There should be lots of funny dialogue. So what we're looking for is some sort of way to measure the movie.
Yeah.
So Patrick said he likes movies with lots of explosions. So one way you could think about movies then is like you could rank them based on the number of things that blow up. Right? And then from there you create a metric to determine which movies are better than other movies.
Yeah, so let's say that so obviously people have different ideas of what a good movie is. But let's just say, for the sake of this lecture, that we all agree that an awesome movie is one with lots of explosions. And that's what an awesome movie is. Now, we have sort of resolved like any disagreement on what could make a good movie, and we're able to say definitively that a good movie is something with lots of explosions. So, what we've just done is created some metric of evaluating what it means to be a good movie, i.e. having lots of explosions, that allows us to take any movie we like, put it up to the standard, and determine definitively if it is a good or bad movie, based on purely the number of explosions that it has. And that, in a nutshell, is exactly what a criteria or a standard does. It allows you to it sets up a number of characteristics that an action would have, and allows you to say that if this action has these characteristics, it is a good action, or a moral action, or a morally permissible action, or something like that.
So if you were debating whether some movie, let's say Twilight, was a good movie or not, based on the standard, and you agree that the number of explosions determines what a good movie is. So you're talking with your friend, you're debating the pros and cons of it, and someone's like, well, Twilight, I read somewhere that in every scene, there are at least 25 blue pixels on the screen at any one time. What would your response to your friend be?
Really?
Exactly. You would just stare at it. It's going to be not making any sense. Because what your standard of the number of explosions does is it tells you what kinds of things matter about the movie. Sure, there are lots of things that happen in movies, like some people have brown hair, some people are tall. But just because that is a fact about a movie doesn't mean that we care about that fact. Because we want some sort of standard, some sort of metric to determine whether that is a good feature of the movie, a bad feature of the movie, or just wholly irrelevant to the memory.
Yeah, exactly. So, if we didn't have some standard to determine if a movie was good or bad, you and your friend could sit there and yell at each other back and forth for hours that Twilight was either a good movie because it had 25 blue pixels per frame in it, or a bad movie because it had no explosions. And you would have no way of resolving that. Both of you would just be making descriptive claims about the movie with absolutely no ability to determine whether or not that movie is good or bad. So, can someone tell me after this discussion, what the role of a standard is, or a criteria? Yeah, it's Kyle, right?
Yeah.
Cool, Kyle.
To evaluate characteristics and, like
You're almost there.
set requirements that you should have.
Yeah. What I like about Kyle's answer here is he's taking the part of the standard that I think is probably most important, which is that it isolates certain things that it actually has to have in order to be characterized as a certain type of action. So in this case, it isolates that the number of explosions are what's going to make a movie a good movie. So, what's your name in the back there? Michael. What is a standard to you?
The standard, like what everything else is trying to get up to. So basically, like set the standard here, so everybody else is trying to catch up to the standard.
Okay, so briefly before I talk about this answer, the phrases standard and criteria are sort of interchangeable.
Oh, you mean like in a case?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, that's totally my fault. It's just sort of different people use different terms, but for the purpose of this lecture, whenever you hear standard or criteria, you can think of the same thing.
The standard is something that upholds your value. And,
So,
kind of sets like its own.
So I like this answer in that standard is what upholds the value. But let's talk about this in terms of our movie example. So if we're trying to decide what a good movie is, what are we valuing when we're making that decision? Does anyone have any idea?
So why might you have this discussion in the first place to decide what is a good movie or which particular movies aren't good?
Yeah.
Curiosity, you want to know?
Okay, so you'd like to know.
I'm sort of curious about the world of film, what's happening there.
So that you know what movies to watch.
Yeah, it's like what movies to watch because you might want to find because you value like entertainment. You want to watch good movies.
Yeah. So what movies do you guys want to watch? This should be an obvious answer.
Movies with explosions.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone at once. In the black shirt, here is that. Yeah.
Movies that fit your standard.
Fit your standard. Okay, but that standard is sort of yet to be determined. So, what kind of movies? Do you guys want to watch bad movies?
Good movies.
Yeah, good movies, right? So you guys want to watch good movies. So in this case, in this discussion with your friend, you guys are trying to value we're trying to find out what a good movie is, right? So seemingly what you guys would be valuing is a good movie. Does that make sense? Okay, so back to your answer about your standard upholding your value. So in the case of the movie, where it's a good movie you're trying to reach, your value is a good movie. What is the role of the standard here?
To set up the characteristics.
Yeah, exactly. It's to determine what exactly a good movie is. So you and your friend have decided that what you're trying to do is, figure out good movies. Your standard in this case is going to determine exactly what, for you and your friend, a good movie is, what the characteristics a good movie might have.
Yeah, and so so the standard is useful in that form, is once again, narrowing down the focus of what you're talking about. Because there are lots of different things that happen in movies, so we need a standard to narrow this focus down and tell us what it even means to be a good movie in the first place. So we've talked a bit about how values work, how a standard works in achieving it. Can someone try and sum up and explain what it means, why? So someone try to explain what it is that a value is and why we would want a standard.
What's your name?
Yeah.
Priya.
Priya? Cool.
A standard is a weighing mechanism to decide whether any given situation in the pool that you're picking from meets the standard or it doesn't. So like if a movie's good or if it's not good, and why you want that is because you want to watch good movies. So if it doesn't meet the standard, then you don't watch it because you don't want to watch movies that don't meet the standard.
Yeah, I really like that answer, both because you talked about it in a little bit more technical terms, but I really like the answer because you demonstrated that you completely understand what you mean by a weighing mechanism here by talking about it in the example. So the way that the value and the standard here fit together is the value determines what exactly like you're looking for. You're looking for a good movie here, what you're valuing. And the standard determines how you're going to find it, that it has lots of explosions.
Yeah. So it seems like you guys are grasping what it means to have a criterion or have a standard in the first place.
But before we move on, right here, what's your name? Next to, what was your name again? I'm sorry.
Jared?
Yeah, next to Jared.
That's Alex.
Alex. So, Alex, what is the relationship between the value and the standard?
The value is what you want to see in it, and the standard is
What do you mean by what you want to see in it? Does anyone want to help him out in describing what a value might be? Yeah.
Like what we're looking for?
Yeah, exactly. Sort of what we're looking for. So like a good, like so in this case in our movie example, we are valuing good movies because we're trying to find out what a good movie is. So that's what a value is. What's the relationship between that and the standard?
when you think of value and you go to a standard, if you want to see the value inside standard, otherwise.
So
I know what I want to say. I'm just not really.
Yeah, definitely. Who wants to help me out? Yeah.
The standard is how you get the value.
What do you mean by that?
Like your set of characteristics that like get you to a good movie.
So like what a good movie is?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the standard helps you determine exactly what it is you're looking for in the value. So, Jared it was, right? Jared. So the value in this case is the good movie, and the standard is how we're trying to find it. So, would you like to try again to explain the relationship between the value and the standard? Now, what's your the source of your inhibition here? Why don't you want to try again?
Because I'm not going to be able to explain it very well.
So why don't you think you're going to be able to explain it very well?
Is there like a particular part you're confused about?
No, I know what I want to say, but one of the things is I'm never good with words, so I can never express why I want to say it, even though I know what I need to say.
So you feel like you understand it, you just don't think you can articulate it back to us?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you come find either me or Graham at office hours? I'll be on the 14th floor.
I'll be on the 11th.
It will help you work through it. Does that sound cool? Awesome. Okay. So, now that we've talked about this movie example, hopefully you guys have gotten a grasp on how these things exactly work together. That the value is sort of what we're looking for in totality, a good movie, and that the standard isolates exactly what it means to be a good movie. Now we're going to move into a debate example.
Yeah, so I'm going to have a question for you guys. So this is a commonly posed ethical dilemma, hopefully one you will never experience. But let's say you are faced with a situation where you can either choose to harm one person, and then if you harm that one person, you'll stop a bunch of other people being harmed. Like let's say this person is
Graham. Let's say I can either shoot Graham in the face, and if I do that, someone will not blow up this building and kill all of us, or I can let that person blow up this building and kill all of us. Yeah. So on one side, I can actually take the action to kill Graham to save you guys, or I can just do nothing and let you guys die.
all right. So if you were Pat, you had to make this decision. Let's think about what you guys would do.
How many of you guys would shoot Graham in the face? One. How many of you guys would shoot Graham in the face even if you like it? More of you? Oh, wow.
I think I would.
How many of you would not shoot
Yeah,
Graham?
I changed my mind.
Okay.
I don't like it. I don't like it either.
All right. So of the people who said that they would shoot Graham in the face, why would you do that? Yeah, Kyle.
He doesn't fit our standard.
What's our standard is?
Just mean.
I don't know, I thought this was related to what we were talking about.
He's an outcast. Let's ostracize him.
Yeah, it's getting there. So why would some of the other guys decide to shoot me in the face?
Yeah. Which
For the greatest good of just these
Utilitarian.
So what do you mean by
Sip it.
like least amount of suffering, or least amount of bad, or do some people die.
Okay, so you think that on the whole, if I were to be shot in the face, less people would die, and that would be beneficial. Okay. So what's someone who would not shoot in the face? Yes.
Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. Why would you not?
Because then I would be personally compromising my own ethics in order to kill you. Like I'd be murdering you, basically.
Yeah. So why would that be compromising?
Because I do not think it's right to kill somebody.
All right. Well, why don't you think it's right?
Just because I guess I don't believe it's right because it's kind of like my ethics. I have more of a deontology, however you say that form, like deontology set of ethics where I believe the means are also very important. And so if I have to kill you, like if I have to murder you in order to save people, I may not choose to do so.
Yeah, so you think that even if the end result of like saving a lot of people would be important, the way that we got there is unacceptable because of the death of the human.
I mean, why can't I just punch you in the face and throw you on the ground?
Yeah, there could be like alternatives or something that would not involve my death. I certainly prefer. Okay, so what these are sort of getting at is that when philosophers discuss what it is to be good, in the context of what is moral and immoral, they also disagree, and there are also different standards you can use. So, focusing on the situation where I got shot in the face again. So what might a standard a person would use if they determined that that was a good thing?
Yeah.
How many lives saved?
Yeah, standard body count. Let's see how many people are going to die if you do action A. How many people die if you do action B? Pick the one that kills the least.
Yeah.
Who is being killed?
Yeah, that could be a standard someone uses, like so that if it's really important that one of you guys in this room survives, maybe it's important that I die to let them live.
Self-preservation.
What do you mean?
Like, if I shoot you in the face, I won't die.
Oh, so let's say for this situation, I'm not going to die either way. So I can either just shoot Graham in the face and save you guys, or just let all of you guys die.
Like down the block.
Patrick would have time to like jump out the door.
The sniper.
Yeah.
Save himself.
I'm pretty nimble. All right. Yeah, those are good reasons. So, it's the number of people that are going to be left alive, or maybe one of you guys is super important, like I don't know, you're going to go be president one day, and so it's going to cause a huge problem if you get killed now. Yeah.
Yeah, so those are definitely good ways of looking at creating a standard that would judge the action to be acceptable. And it's slightly more complicated on the other side. So let's say you felt like it would be wrong to kill you. What might a standard that you use be that would produce that result?
So we're trying to come up with a reason to say it would be okay to not kill Graham and let you guys die. Yeah.
If you have to do something bad to achieve something that's even for the greatest good, it's still bad.
Yeah. So it's important to. What I like about that answer is that it narrows the focus again by saying it's not the end goal that's important, but also how we got there. But the thing that I think is slightly confusing in that is that you said if we do something bad, then we shouldn't be doing that. but we're trying to determine what it means to be good and bad.
Yeah, so let's say if we take their original standard, that what we should do is just save as many people as possible. Killing Graham wouldn't be bad per se, right? Because it would cause this good effect of saving you guys. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what's your name?
Obino.
Obino?
Obino.
Obino.
Yeah.
Okay. So what Obino has told us is that, well, we need to focus on the means of the act, determine whether they were good or bad. What might be a standard we use to judge the means of an action or how we do something?
So let's say, for the sake of argument, that Graham is actually a really nice guy. He's totally innocent. He's just like a little bunny guy. But I didn't have to just like shoot him in the face to save these guys. What might be wrong about the action of me shooting a little bunny rabbit Graham in the face?
Because Bunny Rabbit Graham didn't have anything to do with this situation. Like, he didn't cause the situation or have anything to do with the situation.
Yeah.
Just a bystander.
Yeah, definitely. Graham is just totally, completely innocent. And I have to just like,
I was just walking
Kill
down the
him in
street,
cold blood.
Patrick comes up, shoots me in the face. I'm just like, what is this? I was like,
Well, you're actually not like, what is that? 'Cause you're actually not like, what is that? Because you know you're dead.
Not necessary.
well, minor details.
so can anyone isolate, so yeah, we've got an idea that like maybe there's something wrong here. So can anyone put that in a phrasing that they might see in a debate case? A standard you might use to say in a debate. Yeah.
Oh, wait, the standard. Well, I was going to say, like, how do we know he's going to blow up the building kind of thing?
Well,
Like,
Graham isn't going to. Like, I can promise you with 100% certainty, if I don't shoot Graham in the face, you guys are all going to die. So, how might we articulate a reason why it is not good to kill Graham? Like in a standard format. Yeah.
All life has an inherent value, and we can't take that away.
So that could be getting somewhere. So what I like about this answer is that it isolates something about the situation that is bad, i.e. we're going to take away Graham's life. But seemingly, if all life has inherent value, we don't want to take it away, why wouldn't we want to save more than inherent value? So does anyone have another idea that might help them out? Yeah.
Each individual person has infinite value, so if you save one infinite value versus 4 infinite values, you still have infinity on each side, because 4 infinities is still infinity.
Okay, so this is a really good reason as to why killing Graham wouldn't result in like, less loss of life, or less loss of value. But let's think about in a clear way. If our value, let's say in this case, is morality, we're trying to determine what a moral action is. And we want to say that it is a moral action for me to not shoot Graham in the face. What might our standard here be? What would be something that we could use to say to justify that claim? Any ideas at all?
the sanctity of life or the perceived worth of life.
What do you mean by the sanctity of life?
It's basically like the definition of it's like the inherent value of life, like how we value life, basically.
Okay. I think what might be confusing you guys is just probably that you haven't seen a lot of standards like this before, and so this might be kind of new. So I'm not sure this is the best approach to how to get there.
Yeah. So you made an argument before about why I shouldn't be shot in the face. What was that argument?
It was because you are an innocent bystander who had nothing to do with the situation at hand.
All right, so let's start with that example. So you've isolated some feature of the situation, i.e. that I've done nothing to cause Patrick to shoot me. I did not make any decisions that it's not like me who planted the bomb in this building or something. So I'm an innocent person.
Let's see.
So what's the difference between Patrick shooting me in the face and him letting other people die? In terms of what Patrick has has chosen to do.
So if I just don't shoot Graham, if I don't shoot Graham and walk away, have I killed anybody? Have I actually pulled the trigger to kill anybody?
Does that, there's a difference between to kill and to let die, sort of?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So the situation was something like, there was like some guy in the Castilian who just really didn't like me. And he like sent Patrick this text message, like, yo, Patrick, kill this guy Graham when you see him, or I'll blow up the building. And Patrick's like, oh shit, this must be true, this is a text message. And then, but he still has to, he can choose to kill me or not kill me. But if he doesn't kill me, it's someone else makes a decision that causes like a whole bunch of death. So, in that situation, we might say that there's a distinction between killing and letting die. Because when Patrick chooses to not kill me, it's someone else made a decision to cause all this death.
So, after isolating this distinction here between killing and letting die, can anyone come up with a standard they might use to say it is moral for me to not shoot Graham in the face? Any ideas? Green shirt in the way back corner over here. What's your name?
Jose.
Sorry, one more time?
Jose.
Jose. Okay, Jose, what is do you think of any standard that would let me say that it is moral for me to not kill Graham to save you guys?
That it's wrong to save the life of an innocent.
Yeah, I think that would be a good one. So we could say that our values of morality and basic premise of morality is that it's wrong to kill an innocent person. Yeah, I think that would work. So this broad ethical dilemma is an example of a very, very key ethical debate that's been going on for forever, and one that you will encounter all the time in your time as an LA debater. And it's the debate between two primary ethical theories, one, utilitarianism or consequentialism, and the other, deontology. And our meta-ethics lecture series is going to focus on teaching you guys about those things broadly, with utilitarianism being saving, kill one to save many. It'd be okay to save lives for the greatest good. It'd be okay to kill Graham to save you guys. And deontology saying it's never okay to kill an innocent person, essentially. But we'll get to this more stuff in a later lecture, focusing on those things specifically. Right now, let's sort of hone back in on standards. So, let's talk about an example of a standard. So, we're going to give you guys an example of an affirmative case, just the contentions. And we'd like you guys to think about a standard that would be good to use in this affirmative case. So, let's say in your affirmative case, you want to, on this topic, you want to run that domestic abuse causes the victim of it to go into drug abuse. It causes them post-traumatic stress disorder, which can cause them to abuse other people and commit their own acts of violence, as well as, and which would be a lot of bad consequences. A lot of people would die. Lots of bad stuff would happen. And that killing the abuser would stop this cycle of abuse. So your affirmative case essentially says that abuse causes all this bad stuff, and killing the abuser would stop all of it. So, can anyone think of an example of a standard that would make all this stuff relevant?
So what you want a standard to do in this case, like we started with in our discussion about movies, is that, so we talked about different things we'd like to see in movies. Patrick decided that what makes a movie good is like lots of explosions. We wanted to create a standard that would tell him like the number of movies, or the number of explosions, that in the movie. In that case, it's very simple what the standard is, because there's like exactly one metric that he wanted to measure, and there was exactly like one way to measure the number of explosions. So this case this part is getting a little more complicated, but what we want to try and find is isolate a commonality between the arguments that you're making in this contention, and then you want to articulate a standard for why that contention matters. So remember, this contention says that domestic violence causes the victim to go into drug abuse, which starts harming them, get like brain diseases, it causes them to have symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, where it's like next to impossible for them to be happy and freaking out a lot, and that that deadly force will stop this from happening because they're killing the abuser.
So you could have a standard of minimizing suffering, because if you were to kill the abuser, then the further harms to the victim and the harms that they could impose on other people would be stopped.
Yeah, so you have a standard of minimizing suffering. And there's a particular part of that I think is really important, which is the first word of that, minimizing suffering. So, when we were talking about what makes a movie good, some of you guys said things like dialogue, plot. Andrew said explosions. But it's something about them. It's that you want more of them or you want less of them that makes a movie good. So, what does the word minimizing then clarify about when we're talking about suffering?
Get rid of.
Like quantity.
Increase in.
Toning it down.
What do you mean by like toning it down?
As in the person can still suffer, but it won't be as
Try to reduce as much suffering as possible.
What was that?
Try to reduce as much suffering as possible.
Yeah, we're trying to reduce it as much as possible. So, if the negative got up and said like, well, you killed the abuser, that's suffering. What would this, how could you explain with using the standard that argument just didn't connect? Yeah.
Because in that case, it's minimal suffering when compared to the suffering that the victim themselves would experience, and the victim would conflict on other people under the circumstance of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, definitely. So what that lets you say is that, well, in the affirmative world where you can kill people, yes, the abuser is going to suffer some amount. So the abuser suffers like maybe 10 units. That's how much suffering they say death is. But the victim in the negative world, where they have to stay with the abuser, suffers like maybe 5 units every day for the rest of their life. And that adds up to far more than 10. But the standard, because it was framed in a specific way of minimizing suffering, it provides us a way to weigh between these different worlds. Because if the standard was just like, there could be no suffering, we wouldn't really have a way to make a decision in that case, because there's still going to be some sort of suffering on both sides. But because we're minimizing, we are comparing different things. That minimizing phrase lets us always choose like the best option, which would be affirming in this case and minimizing the suffering.
Yeah, so a lot of people, so remember that the standard functions as the exact rhetoric of the standard is going to clarify what the value means. So if we accept your standard minimizing suffering, let's say the value is morality. What that means is that morality literally is minimizing the suffering. So in this case, whichever side minimized suffering most would be the moral side. So a lot of cases, we'll see kids run things, and their standard would be like stopping suffering, or making suffering non-existent, or ending suffering.
Preventing domestic violence.
Yeah, yeah. And in that case, can anyone think of what might be problematic about that?
The fact that it's unachievable.
So what do you mean by that? Why is that a problem?
Like when they say that we would need to stop it, they're basically making a terminal value or a terminal standard that you cannot achieve, because you cannot stop all of it, but you can regress it.
So articulate that in a way that discusses the relationship between the value and the standard.
All right, so like if the value is morality and the standard to achieve morality is stop suffering, then the problem is you cannot do that, because when you respond with deadly force, the abuser will still suffer when he is dying. And so there is still that sense of suffering. But if you say minimizing suffering, then you can open up arguments stating that there is less overall suffering between the two, with a little suffering here from the aggressor compared to long time suffering for the victim.
Yeah, definitely. So because the standard is literally the condition on when your value is met, if your standard is something like stopping suffering, morality has only been achieved when suffering is completely ended, which is a rather ridiculous burden to put on yourself. But when your criterion or standard is just minimizing suffering, morality is the more moral action is whichever side just minimizes suffering. It's a much more achievable thing. And that's something that we can weigh and determine which side the argument actually does better.
Because like what we've talked about before with the movie examples, that the purpose of a standard is to compare different things. And so if our standard for a good movie was one that won every Oscar, was the only nomination for every Oscar because everyone knew it would win, won every Golden Globe Award, and like set the box office record. If a movie does that, it is a good movie. Now, can someone raise their hand and tell me what movie has done this? It's correct. There is no movie that would possibly meet this standard because it just doesn't happen. So in this case, while we have articulated like a standard that could maybe hypothetically like compare between different things, it really doesn't tell us anything useful at all. Because what we want a standard to do is to be able to differentiate between affirming and negating a topic, and so that we can learn something about it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's say that you rewrite your app case to be a little more specific, and your entire contention on your app case is about the drug abuse caused by domestic violence. Do you think it's still a good idea to have your standard being minimizing suffering? Yellow shirt over here. What's your name, by the way?
Thomas.
Thomas? Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you hear me.
Oh, I am kind of quiet.
Oh yeah, I couldn't
No, but it's no problem. Okay, so you're going to rewrite your affirmative case to be much more specific, and the entire case is going to focus on the drug abuse caused by domestic violence. Is the standard of minimizing suffering still the standard you want, or do you want to change it?
I think you want to change it.
Why?
So that it would like be more specific towards what you're writing.
Yes, exactly. Why is having a specific standard more advisable in the situation? Yeah,
I wouldn't know what you're talking about. I wouldn't know what you're talking about.
I mean, I think a lot of people know what drug abuse is, but let's think of a different answer. Anyone have another idea? Chris, you look like you haven't want to give me an answer.
No, don't have any.
Okay, you don't have any idea of why it would be more advantageous? Someone help Chris out. Yeah. Yeah.
So it only takes like one piece of offense to achieve the standard.
Okay. Do you think it would take more pieces of offense to, like drug abuse is obviously suffering in this case situation, right? So what about this specific standard makes it only take one piece of offense rather than the other?
Drug abuse, like minimizing drug abuse. If that was the standard, then you would only like one piece of offense, so drug abuse to achieve the standard.
Why would you need more pieces if your standard was minimizing suffering?
Because like a broader term, so there's all different sorts of suffering that could be on like both sides of the equation.
Yeah. So let's say your standard, your app is all about drug abuse, but your standard is still minimizing suffering. And the negative comes up and reads this long case about why if they kill their abuser, they're going to go to jail, and jail causes lots of suffering. And they just totally like link into your standard of minimizing suffering and just destroy you there. So why might it be strategic to limit your standard to something more specific?
So, situation one, you have a standard that is minimizing suffering. Your contentions are about drug abuse, post-traumatic stress disorder, killing the abuser stops it from happening. Your opponent does what Patrick said, makes a bunch of arguments how like women who kill their abusers are often sent to jail, and in jail, lots of bad things happen to them. Jail is just a really sucky place to be. Situation two is the exact same, except that your standard is now just minimizing drug abuse, and your contention just talked about a lot of statistics about people who are victims of domestic violence start using a lot of drugs and abusing them, and that if they kill their abusers, they'll solve the problem. The negative reads those same arguments that, oh, going to jail is really bad. What would you do in situation two that you could not do in situation one? They don't have an idea.
Think about this and what the standard means. So remember, we decided that the standard is how you achieve your value. So in situation two, your value is morality, and your standard is minimizing drug abuse. Yeah.
So if they're talking about like jail sucks, and then you go and give your case and you're like, well, it doesn't really matter if the jail sucks because I'm talking about like drug abuse. And so if drug abuse isn't happening, then it's still a good thing. You know, it still fits the standard. So while jail may be like a bad place to be, we're talking about the drug abuse that's occurring.
Yeah. So let's think about the movie situation again. So we decided that our value in this case is a good movie, and that our standard is lots of explosions. And I'm talking with Graham, and I'm telling him that Twilight is a really bad movie because there's lots of explosions. And Graham looks at me and says, well, like, yeah, but you know, there's really heartfelt romance. And like, that's awesome. Has Graham showed me that Twilight is a good movie?
No.
Why not? Purple shirt. What's your name?
Me? Oh. Okay.
What's your name again? I'm sorry.
Armand.
Armand? Cool.
Okay. So like, it doesn't really match the standard. Like, if your standard in that situation is like, go back to the action movies, how many explosions. It doesn't matter like how like love felt the movie was if that's not your weighing standard. Your weighing standard is how many explosions there were. That's completely irrelevant.
So give me your answer again, except don't use the word standard. Why hasn't Graham shown me that Twilight is a good movie talking about romance?
Okay, because the way you determined if the movie was good or not was based on like the amount of explosions. The amount of love that was in it was completely irrelevant at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. So let's bring back up the debate example. Your standard is minimizing drug abuse. And you have all these reasons why killing the domestic abuser minimizes drug abuse. And your opponent gets up and says, but there are tons of bad things that happen to them in jail. Why is having this specific standard strategic in this case? Yeah.
There's less room to prove you wrong.
What do you mean?
Like, if your case is specifically about drug abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder, then you can say that if you don't kill your abuser, there's less suffering because less people die.
So we've eliminated the minimizing suffering standard. Your standard is now just minimizing drug abuse. Can anyone think of a reason why that's strategic when your opponent just gets up and talks about jail? Yeah.
You could link into theirs and yours, but they're not going to be able to link into yours.
What do you mean when you say they won't be able to link into your standard?
Because if theirs is about like broader things like minimizing suffering as a whole, it's not going to fit into just like drug abuse. If they're talking about like jail and like.
So explain to me exactly why jail wouldn't matter in this case.
Because jail doesn't have anything to do with drug abuse. When, like, if their standard is minimizing suffering, then you could say that like drug abuse is still suffering, so you can still link to there.
And why does that matter in terms of determining which action is moral?
Because you can say that you're winning, like on your justification, you're winning like according to either of the standards that are set up, but your opponent like can never link with yours, and so won't win with that justification.
So let's just say that the only standard for the round is reducing drug abuse. Yeah.
So in that case, jail time and what happens in jail would be irrelevant to achieving morality because that's not what you're quantifying morality by?
Yes, exactly. So just like in the movie example, where I'm quantifying what a good movie is by how many explosions there are, in this debate round, I'm quantifying what is moral by reducing drug abuse. It doesn't, the effects that happen in jail are literally irrelevant to determining whether or not the action is moral or not. As soon as our standard becomes something more specific like this, something like reducing drug abuse, that is all that matters in the round. No other impact can just all of a sudden like become a moral factor if it's not actually in part of the standard, because the standard is what you do to achieve morality. So, Michael, can you explain to me why the specific standard of reducing drug abuse is strategic when your opponent gets up and reads lots of stuff about jail?
Because it's specific and jail has nothing to do with it anymore.
So,
it has to do with drug abuse.
So jail has nothing to do with drug abuse. Why does that mean you're going to win the round?
Because they're basically not attacking your criterion.
So
they're just stating facts and not attacking
So
your
what's the effect of not attacking your criterion? What have they failed to show?
Different criterion, and they failed to show you how they're superior, I guess.
So let's think about what we're trying to do here. We're trying to determine which action is moral, right? Whether it's moral to kill the abuser or not, right?
Yeah.
So how does the criterion affect that debate? What role does the criterion play in regards to morality? Someone want to help Michael out?
Yeah.
So like what roles is criterion determined to achieve morality, right?
Yeah.
So if they can't prove you wrong, then basically they're saying that you if you're affirming the resolution, then they're saying that you do affirm the resolution because they cannot prove that you don't, I guess. And basically because of the specific standard, it determines the relevancy of their arguments. And if they're not attacking drug abuse specifically from your criterion, then they're not proving you incorrect, and you are proving the resolution to be correct in that manner.
I think that's a pretty good answer, but a convoluted one. Is there any way you can shorten that a little bit?
The standard determines the relevancy, I guess, maybe.
Why? And the relevancy of what? I guess?
The relevancy of the topic, or of what they can attack you on. So if you're talking about the drug abuse, then they have to specifically prove to you why a standard of drug abuse would not lead to morality in some way, or why it's not effective to measure morality.
So why is morality important?
It's the value.
And so what is the standard doing?
The standard is trying to meet the value, right, or trying to achieve it.
Well, the standard isn't trying to achieve it, but your potential warnings are, right? So I guess what I mean to say is, so the standard clarifies like what it is, what it means to achieve the value.
So it's just like the measurement in that case? How do we know when we've achieved it?
Right. We've known we've achieved morality when we've reduced drug abuse. Unfortunately, I think that we've run out of time, so we should wrap up, I guess. So if you guys can hang on for 2 more minutes.
Yeah. So one thing to notice about how we've been talking about this is that when you're reading a case, which do you read first, the standard or the Novice?
The standard.
Standard. But what did we start with when we were deciding what standard to use?
Contention.
Yeah, we started with the contentions. So this place is that just because you read them in a certain order, it doesn't mean you have to write them in a certain order. Because a lot of the times, like we realize that you want a standard that's specific to the contentions that you made. You don't want as broad a standard as possible to include everything, because then your opponent can talk about a bunch of other things. But they would be better prepared to debate than you are. What you want is something that just lets your own arguments matter, not your opponent's. So you'll be really far ahead of other people who just sort of like approach the topic by trying to justify a standard and make some contentions that link to it. Because if they do it in that order, they won't realize what they're including and excluding with the standard, and then really what they want to do is justify their attacks.
Okay, so before you guys leave, who can tell me what the relationship between the value and the standard is? Someone who hasn't answered the question. I'm going to call on you. Okay.
How about yellow?
What was the question?
What's the relationship between the value and the standard?
The standard clarifies the value.
In what way?
Like it's like what it means to like achieve it.
Yeah, it's a good answer.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I think that's good. Next time, so we talked about like, what you want a standard to do and how to formulate them. So next time we're going to focus more on. So now that we know what we want to make.